1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the High Performance CEO Show, your exclusive insight into the strategies and success habits of the world's top CEOs. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, entrepreneur, mentor, and business angel. Prepare to grow your business, enhance your leadership skills, and thrive in today's world. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the High Performance CEO Show. Today I'm talking to Steve Grabenheimer, and we took us a while to get this set up. He's currently in Mexico, originally from Canada. He runs an interesting company, Covspect. He's the CEO and founder, and they basically solve real-world problems in the area of infection control and biosafety with software as a service, AI, a lot of technology. We will talk about this. We will talk about his roots. I mean, he's a son of a refugee, and he has an amazing, captivating story. So, hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sebastian. Pleasure to be here with you. Appreciate your time as always, and looking forward to chatting about Covspect and entrepreneurship with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we met a couple of months ago and we just talked about how difficult it was or how different it was 10, 15 years ago to build connections overseas. You know, you had to dial make long distance calls, spend a lot of money on the phone, and actually the hurdle of getting in touch with someone was quite high. You know, I mean, it's really, some people, for them, it's really hard to pick up the phone and just dial a number of someone they never spoke to. But with the use of internet, LinkedIn, and all these social media platforms, it's very easy to get connected, to get each other to know and have a chat and then see, and something develops out of it. You know, like we met and now we are here on this interview. You talked about your roots, your story, where you came from, basically as a son of a refugee. Very interesting story. So maybe let's start with that the listeners really get you to know.
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually my grandparents were both refugees. So my grandfather, Steve Grabenheimer, was a military manufacturer in Berlin. He manufactured women's hats. And on the onset of Hitler coming into power and obviously the rise of Nazi Germany, he actually saw the writing on the wall and immediately shipped all of his possessions from Germany over to Scotland. He managed to escape Nazi Germany and was a refugee to Glasgow, Scotland. My grandmother, Marion Weissman, she escaped on the Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill actually had a program called the Kindertransport, and it covered about 10,000 refugees living in Germany at the time. They had to be under 17. So as a 14-year-old girl, she got on a train by herself. She was a part of this program. Oh. She was accepted. She escaped, and she immigrated to Glasgow
on her own.
On her own. She later met my grandfather. He set up his business. He created a startup at the time called Nelson Hats. He continued to manufacture headwear and Scottish hats, and was a wholesale retailer. He had 100 employees, and he could barely speak English. So entrepreneurship is certainly in the blood. On my mother's side, my grandparents also had a pretty tragic story. Their house got blown up by the Russians. My grandfather was just a young boy also, 13, 14, taking care of his little sister, putting black soot on her face so she wouldn't get raped by the Russians, dressed her up like a boy. They were doing farm work in the middle of nowhere. And then eventually they escaped and immigrated to Canada. And my father immigrated to Canada in the 70s. My parents met in Toronto, and here I am. So the grandson of refugees, and very proud of their history and the trajectory of my grandparents. And to this day, my grandfather, Steve Grabenheimer, is my biggest inspiration in business.
I can understand. I can just imagine. I have a son, he's 14, that he would need to emigrate on his own, make his way to another country and live there. I think it's been tough times back then, and talking about what happened to Russian, in the light of the Ukrainian war at the moment, this is not so far away. Yeah, I mean, I'm here in Europe, you are in Mexico, but for us, it's just a couple of hours on a plane, and this is what is happening there right now.
It's tragic, and it doesn't seem like there's an off-ramp. It doesn't seem like there's, any end in sight the way things are progressing. But something's got to be done, and they need to either come to some sort of a compromise. But it's not easy. Dealing with a dictator like Putin is an absolute nightmare for Western politicians. I mean, how could we possibly negotiate with somebody like that in this era? And it's tragic to see war in Europe again. It's been decades without war. Obviously, Canada's on the same side as Germany and funding the war, but it doesn't seem like we're making any progress. It's tough. I mean, how do you take out a nuclear power like Russia, where they have more nukes than the U.S.? It's
yeah. But let's not get depressed on this show. Let's focus on something positive and something you create and build.
Absolutely.
Covspect. You said in your intro, you solving real-world infection control and biosafety problem. What does it mean? I mean, what are you really after?
Great question. So, infection control, of course, means to take on superbugs, microbes, microorganisms. So I created an agnostic UVC marketplace along with my team, of course. I'm not a solopreneur. There's a team of core team of 5 members, and each one of us has a different skill set. And essentially, we sell UVC technology. We're also creating a SaaS solution called Recaller, which is going to be an AI predictive recall application to help food and beverage manufacturers predict their next safety hazard.
Okay.
The average product recall costs food processing or beverage processing companies $10 million on average. There's actually not that much regulation with respect to infection control, particularly with respect to UVC. You'd be surprised on how many recalls exist and the frequency of them. They've been increasing. So even as technology increases, we're not seeing a safer food supply. We're seeing, in fact, more recalls than we did decades ago. Quality control is still a major issue. And in terms of...
May I ask, why is that? I mean, in our high technologized world, why is quality control an issue? Why are we seeing more problems rising up?
That's a great question. There's just a tremendous amount of incompetence all over the world.
Yes.
And the reality is, dealing with microorganisms is incredibly challenging. There's basically a war between humans and microorganisms that we're involved in every day.
Yeah.
That's why we clean our floors and use Windex on our windows and so on and so forth. And 90% of our time is spent indoors, and we don't regulate indoor air. So we regulate our water supply, which of course we should. We regulate, outdoor air, but we don't regulate indoor air, which is where, again, 90% of us all exist. So we sell technology that can take on the challenge of treating indoor air. So we sell UVC light technology, which is basically, typically, it would be a 254 nanometer light, a bulb connected to a power supply. It could be deployed through HVAC systems or through an in-room UVGI system, which would be kind of like a 2x4 hanging system that contains a chamber where we suck dirty air in, sterilize it with UVC and HEPA filters, and then shoot out clean air through the other side. In healthcare, for example, I believe 1 out of 6 people that enter a hospital will leave with an HAI, which stands for healthcare acquired infection. So this is incredibly detrimental to folks that have comorbidities or that are elderly or severely obese. They can literally go to a hospital to visit a loved one, get a disease, and die. And it actually is quite tragic. HAIs take more lives than AIDS, and cancer in the US. And it's a real problem, and indoor air is not regulated. Nobody is requiring hospitals to sterilize indoor air, which is actually the number one indoor air use case. for UVC,
Okay.
where it should be deployed, yet there's no regulation. And why there's no regulation is beyond me. We're on the front lines of trying to change society to have more of a focus on these types of biological issues. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic is the biggest example of this. During the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a tremendous amount of emphasis placed on indoor air quality. You saw, publications like Rolling Stone writing about UVC and indoor air, which you never would have seen in years past. So
But did we learn? Did we really learn? Did we take action to prevent the next obviously not, because you said that biggest infections are still being caught in hospitals by breathing air, which is not filtered, not cleaned. So we didn't really learn from the pandemic that we said, okay, now we have to change this, not only for the next version of the coronavirus, but also for all the other viruses which are populating in hospitals.
I would say the private sector learned and governments did not. The private sector is adopting technologies like UVC and other biosafety solutions at a much greater pace than they ever have. UVC has been around since the 1870s. Originally, it was first discovered and deployed to treat wound rooms and surgery rooms and hospitals. And in the 1970s, German and French scientists discovered the 222 nanometer wavelength, which is presumed to be safe for human eye, skin, and lung exposure. And that's sort of the newer side of UVC, along with UVC LED technologies. And we're seeing a lot more adoption. The industry, it depends on the analyst, but some analysts predict that the UVC space will be at $6 billion a year by 2030. Some say as much as $18.9 billion by 2030. So the rate of adoption in the private sector is quite impressive. However, governments are doing very little. In fact, I had an interaction with the PMRA, which regulates UVC and ultraviolet light in Canada. And I was trying to get 222 nanometer far UVC recognized as being a safe technology. And I sent about 6 peer-reviewed studies, some of which came from David Brenner, who's a radiation scientist. And the response I got was, sorry, I haven't seen enough evidence. And it was just like a couple lines. And, okay, there's nowhere else to go but you guys in Canada, for example. Like, I can't go anywhere else. I can't escalate this. So, and it's not much different in other countries across Western Europe or across the US. It's the same thing, but the technology is being adopted. For example, one of our partners sterilizes the HVAC systems in the White House. So, you've got organizations like NASA using far UVC to sterilize rockets and such. And, the U.S. Army is using it to treat indoor air. We had a lead with the Canadian Royal Mounted Police, didn't go anywhere. Government is taking notice. I mean, governments have been sterilizing water supplies with UVC going back to, I believe, 1908. The French have been using it since that period to get rid of Legionnaire's disease. And the reason why we have clean drinking water is because of UVC. So during the pandemic, I started studying this technology, started reading up on the physics of UVC and understanding the germicidal wavelength, which is the 180 nanometer to 280 nanometer wavelength. In nature, this exists in the sun. So there's 3 rays, UVA, UVB, and UVC. UVC is the germicidal wavelength. It'll destroy any sort of bacteria, mold, or virus in a matter of seconds or less than a second. And in nature, it gets absorbed by the ozone layer. But scientists found a way to recreate it, of course. And we have this same technology using physics and electronics today. So, we definitely need more UVC treating our indoor air, treating our HVAC systems, treating our water supplies. And I come from an IT and a technology sales background. This is my second startup. I exited my first startup in 2017. But during the pandemic, I started reading on what technologies can help treat indoor air that can destroy these pathogens so that people can have safer indoor air experiences, because it is where we spend the majority of our time. So then I started reading about UVC, and I decided to kind of take the concept of a VAR, So to anybody listening that doesn't know what a VAR is, it's a common acronym in IT. It stands for value-added reseller. So I used to work for a publicly traded VAR. Two of my colleagues on the team also worked for VARs. And we decided to take the concept of an IT VAR, and an IT VAR, for example, would sell you anything from Microsoft licenses to servers to cybersecurity software, and offer some consulting services and get you better discounts on these types of technologies so that you can sort of consolidate all of your procurement efforts under the roof of one vendor.
Channel it.
Yeah, so I decided to take that concept and apply it to UVC and biosafety, because in my opinion, and all the analysts agree, this industry is going to be growing significantly over the next 10 years, especially because the private sector has learned that we need to deal with pathogen control, because realistically, we are going to have another pandemic, and there's already all types of biological problems popping up left, right, and center. It's inevitable. We're going to see.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about climate change, global warming, you have bacteria and viruses basically emerging from the frozen tundra, for example. Things which are protected for many 10,000 years. And suddenly we face these completely unknown viruses. And unfortunately, I agree. There will be another pandemic, so we need systems and technology in place which we can use, that we not start from scratch like we did with COVID.
Absolutely. Also, too, I mean, that's on the nature side of things, but in terms of man-made problems, there's 51 biolabs in the world, and I'm not knocking biolabs. We need to have them. We need to study pathogens and viruses. However, as we learned from COVID, it's quite likely that human error can occur, and we can also have a pandemic from lab leaks and from incompetence, human incompetence, which is, of course, a given in life. So, we very much need to have eyeballs on this technology. We need to have safer air because, we're living in a world filled with microbes and microorganisms that are dangerous to human life. And, these technologies, they're out there, they're plentiful, but you don't hear about biosafety technology the same way you hear about SaaS, for example, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very, very focused, very niche topic. But not many are in your space.
Well, we certainly have competition. There are, dozens of competitors out there. And that's a good thing. We want competition. The industry is growing fast. For example, UVC LED technology, it's improving its efficiency at a rate of 40% year over year. So we're seeing really, really immense improvements with UVC LED, and it's different than 254 nanometer UVC, which is mercury based, which is of course toxic to the environment. Whereas UVC LED operates from a semiconductor chip and has like instant on and off time and no mercury, which is good because everybody wants sustainable technology nowadays. And we're actually working on an opportunity right now. Probably shouldn't say the name, but if you think about the largest soda company in the world, we're working on a big opportunity for them right now in Ireland, where they're looking to move away from mercury-based lamps because, for example, in California, they banned the use of mercury in bulbs, and we can't sell that technology in states like California and Washington. And they're typically, more progressive, innovative states, and the kind of laws they enact around sustainability tend to reverberate and snowball and impact the rest of the world. So in 10 years, will mercury lamps still be around? Perhaps. I think they still will be in many parts of the world, but I think many parts of the world will phase them out. So we are seeing the technology that we procure going through a massive change where sustainable technologies are certainly becoming quite popular.
Yeah. And you're also very versed in AI. I mean, you said you redefine how AI for food and beverage safety is approached.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm an advocate of AI. I'm just launching a new AI productivity lab, and I'm very interested to understand how you use AI and what impact you create by using this technology for food and beverage safety, which is a different topic.
Sure. No, I mean, it's all relative to biosafety and what we do. So yeah, I myself am a huge advocate for AI. As soon as ChatGPT came out, I actually took screenshots of about, let's say, 30 different questions that I asked it and published it on our blog, all about our technologies, just to kind of evaluate the accuracy. And I found it to be quite accurate immediately. And it's, of course, improving every single day. But we've actually been strong advocates for AI since our inception. We used AI to generate our logo using a product called Luca, for example. We use Fireflies.ai to analyze the notes that we take on live calls and meetings. It records the meeting and then provides you with, a whole synopsis and the tone and the sentiment of the conversation. It's brilliant. We use, obviously, ChatGPT to help us with blog post ideas and research ideas and how to even right-size our own business model. Our company has meetings about, how to deploy AI on a weekly basis. And when it comes to the SaaS platform that we're building, my background is all in technology sales and corporate tech sales and SaaS and hardware, going back my entire career over 20 years. So I used to work with Costco, and I worked with them on their product recalls for about 8 to 9 years. So I actually would send out messages pertaining to specific product recalls, whether it be, children's toys or spinach or what have you. I got to analyze what types of products were being recalled after working with them for 9 years. And I was actually kind of shocked at the volumes of products that are recalled. And they have an advantage in that they have identification-based membership systems for all of their customers. So they're able to uniquely identify all of their customers with a unique customer number, and they have all of their emails and mobile numbers, and they're quite brilliant at how they manage their data. So they have an advantage that way because, company like Walmart, for example, being a major competitor, well, they don't have a membership system like that, right? Sam's Club does, but very few companies in the retail space that sell food and beverage products do. But Costco does, and after sending out literally millions upon millions of recall messages over 8 to 9 years, it definitely put me in a position where I had a lot of knowledge about the types of products that are recalled. And a lot of people don't realize that the most commonly recalled product is actually leafy greens.
Really?
You're more likely to get sick from romaine lettuce, spinach, what have you, any type of leafy green, arugula, than you are from any kind of meat product or any other type of food product, period, more so than dairy or anything. And a lot of that's because of poor farming practices. You've got, there was actually a story a couple of days ago where somebody purchased one of these plastic packages of lettuce, and it had a live frog inside. And I'm like, that doesn't surprise me. So after working with Costco,
this is where probably eat the frog first comes from. Yeah.
Cook up a nice French dish there. So the way I was inspired to create Recaller was by my experience in working with Costco, and also knowing that the average product recall costs a company $10 million. The reputational damage is immense. Consumer sentiment is going to be dramatically impeded after you get some bad publicity like that. And basically there's a big need to help predict product recalls. So Boston University was the first organization in the world to create an AI that could help predict product recalls. And the way that they did that was by analyzing customer sentiment online, by analyzing reviews. So they would basically look at, let's say 1-star reviews posted on websites like Kroger or Walmart or Amazon, and then take that analysis and then build out an AI around that to help food and beverage companies predict their next recall. So we're piggybacking off of that research and that data, but we're adding other layers to it, such as live feedback, where we could, for example, send a text message to distributors of certain food products on a weekly basis to check in with them to see if they've had any sort of negative feedback, and if they have, provide the product code and the number. And we're going to take that kind of a live B2B text and phone communication system where they're regularly checking in with all of their distributors to see if they're getting any negative feedback, along with analyzing online reviews for 1-star reviews to try and see if we can help food and beverage companies to of course, locate a product recall before it happens, so that 200,000 people aren't sick, so that, hopefully it's just 100 or a couple hundred. And I think that there's an incredible need for this type of technology. And I think that AI can not just help us, write a better essay or, write a better blog post. It can also help us predict the next safety hazard.
Exactly. Analyze. Data is available. Yeah, you said, they're analyzing reviews on the internet. So the data is there. So we just need to really make use of it. And this is where AI comes into place, managing this enormous amount of data, different types of data. And in the end, it's looking for patterns. Yeah? And when you find these patterns, then you can predict whatever could happen. Yeah? And I agree. Many people, they see tools like ChatGPT as I can, as you said, write a blog post and stuff. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just something most of the people play around with and say, it's great. But they don't really see the business case and the immense power you have with these tools. Yeah, also refining ideas, doing brainstorming. I have long chat sessions with ChatGPT and refine ideas and get a hopefully unbiased feedback on my ideas and what I think about certain topics. And when I create something, I run it against, and it's not that ChatGPT creates something for me, but I create it and I get it refined and validated and also corrected. Yeah. So this is, and there I see the immense power. You have someone in your team which is always available, which has a lot of knowledge and great capacity, and you only need to learn how to talk to this entity.
Absolutely. Is an entrepreneur, if anybody is listening that's thinking about creating their own idea for their own startup, it's never been easier, and it's never been cheaper. There are so many AI tools out there that can help you just quickly create a website, come up with content, with taglines, with logos, with unique content. And of course, you shouldn't rely 100% on the AI. You definitely need to do your own research and become an industry expert and become a trustworthy source. And you're not going to become a leader of any sort of industry if you're just relying solely on AI. You, of course, have to do your own due diligence. But these tools have considerably made entrepreneurship faster and easier to ramp up, along with automation tools with respect to marketing. There's less of a need to outsource to consultants, to designers, to folks that used to charge thousands of dollars because of these AI tools. And that's certainly helped us accelerate our startup quite a bit.
Exactly. Oh, it's fascinating the times we're living.
Oh, for sure. When ChatGPT first came out, how did it impact your business?
As we discussed, refining ideas. I stopped hiring certain people. I used a lot certain consultants or designers or editors on these various platforms, but I don't need them anymore. I have my core team. They are all equipped with AI. They can do, we 10x their productivity. And that's the beauty. And we learned so much in the last 9 months when it's out that now I'm creating this program for primarily solopreneurs to really help them leverage AI and to save. We say we have a very bold claim, but actually it's not that bold. save 8 hours a week. Actually, it's more, yeah. But saving this time you can then use to do more important things, yeah, either to increase sales on your business, yeah, or work or spend more time on a personal project, and enjoy your life, yeah. So AI helps in both areas quite dramatically, yeah, and this is fascinating.
I'll say though, when it first came out, when ChatGPT first came out, I think it was November of last year, I started using it for some email copy, and I think it actually worked as a hindrance because my emails before, I would try and write emails how I spoke. And if you listen to, some of the most successful people in technology and in lead generation, they always advise that you should write email copy based on how you speak. And the most successful emails that convert leads at the highest rates tend to have email copy that sounds natural, that doesn't sound obviously robotic and too scientific or too dry. Whereas if you don't use ChatGPT properly, if you don't include the right prompts and you're relying on it too much, it can make you come across as impersonable and robotic. And, that's something that I would caution entrepreneurs against is to, if you just had a discovery call, if you just ran a demo and you go into ChatGPT and you say, write me an email follow-up to John Doe, who operates a shrimp manufacturing company in Colombia, and make the email focus on ROI. It's going to write a really dry, boring email that may not elicit a response. And they're also very long and wordy. Whereas if you do it on your own and you don't use ChatGPT at all, and you just maybe use ChatGPT to find some data points, you'll do a lot better. So I think it's also a challenge nowadays because we have these amazing tools that can accomplish a lot of these workflows so fast to get addicted to using them for tasks that don't necessarily need AI as well. Like you should have your own writing style. You should be able to communicate
definitely
with your own perspective.
Yeah. No, I said, it's not, it can write, yes, but that's not a primary use case. I see different areas where it can be much more powerful and speed up processes. And I have a private ChatGPT instance and I can load all my company data in there, and work with the content I created years ago and find patterns and build new things, based on my own content, my own IP. And that's beautiful and very powerful.
Absolutely. There's no question. It's going to be incredible to see where AI takes us in 10 years, when you see the rapid acceleration.
Interesting conversations out on YouTube, from experts and going in different directions. But we have to see. It's we will sooner than later know where this journey is taking us.
I think some of the ideas are going to be brilliant, and some of them are going to be looked at, and people are going to look back and reflect on the origins of AI. People are going to laugh at a lot of the concepts too. I just saw, Xiaomi, the Chinese hardware company. They're one of the biggest mobile manufacturers in the world. They just put out an AI dog called CyberDog. I don't know if you saw that, but I'm like,
no, I didn't.
What is the exact need for this? Do people need a CyberDog? Why? I don't know. I think that's going to be the kind of use cases that people reflect back on and be like, what the hell? This is where, all this research and IP were put into place to create products like this. Doesn't make any sense to me. But, with healthcare, there's, I think, going to be a lot of incredible progress, like AI, I think, will be able to analyze, let's say, an X-ray better than a human will, right?
Yeah.
Things like that.
It already does, there are already use cases where you have AI analyzing X-rays or computer CT scans and spot patterns which a human can't identify.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. So how does the future of Covspect look? I mean, what is in the pipeline? What are you planning next? Well, we can't say years anymore, I mean, it's months nowadays, because technology and the speed of change is so incredible fast that no one knows what's happening half a year. So how does your next quarter look like at Covspect?
Yeah, great question. So, on September 1st, we're going to find out if we won a contract with the largest soda company in the world in Ireland. Really excited to see if we've won that opportunity. It'll be absolutely huge for us. We got accepted into an accelerator based out of Los Angeles called Peach Score. So we'll be joining their cohort in late January. I have a son on the way in November. I was supposed to join the cohort in October, but I decided to not do that because I want to spend, first months with just focusing on being a new dad. So really excited about that. Of course.
Wise decision.
Thank you so much. We're going to be hopefully landing an investment with an Abu Dhabi-based investor. We were verbally told we would be receiving this investment, but we're just right now putting together 3 different proposals, and we're super excited to see what the future holds with this particular investor. He wants us, I believe, to have a presence in the UAE. So on my agenda for the rest of the year, I plan on incorporating a business actually in the US. So we're going to be creating a Miami, Florida LLC. We want to have a presence there. We're also going to be planning on creating our own line of UVC hardware along with corresponding IoT software. We're going to be progressing our AI SaaS application Recaller and completing that MVP by the end of the year. And then potentially creating a business in the UAE where we'll be focusing on assisting with deploying more UVC in that region. So it's quite interesting. In the UAE and in the Middle East, they obviously spend more time indoors than we do, other parts of the world because of the heat, because they're essentially in the desert. So they're living in air conditioning, and the average person doesn't know that air conditioning is detrimental to your health. You're breathing in dead bugs, dust, plethora of pathogens and microbes. It creates allergies, and a lot of folks have really bad allergies because they spend a lot of time indoors and they're breathing this honestly disgusting indoor air, which is a real problem for human health. The EPA, the WHO, they've all recognized the harms of indoor air. And unless there's more regulation, we're not going to see much of a change. In the Middle East, they've barely made any progress with respect to indoor air. And this particular investor sees a real gap in the market and is looking to partner up with a company like us to help them take on the challenges of indoor air within the UAE primarily. So we've got a lot on the go right now. We're trying to do ideally a $1.5 to $3 million raise. We really need more, but because we've got a really grand vision. We want to be the largest UVC marketplace in the world. We want to take that market share, but we obviously need the investment to get to that place.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed. I love your mission. I love what you're trying to achieve, and you're definitely creating an impact and doing good for many people. So,
thank you,
Stephen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's been a very interesting discussion. Lots of learning. I have to probably listen to this a couple of times to really recap, and it's been very interesting. And hey, I wish you all the best, and definitely stay in touch.
Always a pleasure, Sebastian. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for tuning into the High Performance CEO Show. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, and it's been a pleasure serving you. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create a bigger impact. Check out our website, sebastianschieke.com, for additional resources. Until next time, be bold, be exceptional, be outstanding, be a leader.